Do you call for the reversal of Minnesota's flag?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It should be gone. And they chose the colors of Somalia and they chose an Islamic star to put on that flag. And most people in Minnesota hate that flag. It's meaningless. You look at the flag, it means nothing except to the Somalis who've come to Minnesota in force. And to them, it says, we're conquering the state of Minnesota. We have one of the largest state fairs in the country. Everyone in Minnesota loves the Minnesota State Fair. And there was a flag booth. And flying off the shelves was the traditional, original Minnesota state flag. Everybody hates the Somali flag.
Meanwhile,
Let's be real for a second. When people start arguing about something as basic as a state flag, that usually means something deeper is going on underneath. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now in Minnesota. There's a growing backlash from cities and local communities pushing back against a Democrat led effort to redesign the state flag. And a lot of people are looking at this new design and saying, hold on, why does this look so familiar? Why does it resemble the Somali flag so closely? Now, whether that was intentional or not, that's what people are reacting to. And the reaction isn't small. It's not just a few voices online. You got real communities saying this doesn't feel right. This doesn't represent us. And this feels like something that was pushed through without fully bringing the public along. Here's what this actually looks like on the ground. Minnesota, especially Minneapolis, has one of the largest Somali immigrant populations in the country. That's just a fact. And alongside that, there have been major fraud cases in recent years. Matter of fact, mentioning today with the Quality Learning Center, it actually got raided by the FBI as of today, recently. After months of the fraud, being suspected, and also the businesses shutting down, and then also the public reports and public records of how much funding, government funding, that these daycares have gotten, uh, through saying that they had kids there that happen to be not be open to the public to any individuals, let alone kids being seen in these individual daycares or tours being accepted when individuals come by to ask questions, which made the stakes of the fraud suspicion and skepticism even higher at the time before the raid that took place today, which was already suspected months before or earlier on in the beginning of this year with Nick Shirley. Shout out to him. Go check out his content and just asking questions. As you get American taxpayer dollars, you would think you would get awarded answers, let alone the business be open to the public. So I'm saying all that to say that there have been major fraud cases in the recent years, like Feeding Our Future scandal, where hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars were misused, and those cases have been investigated and prosecuted. Now, to be clear, that does not mean an entire community is responsible for that. That's not accurate. But what it does do is raise serious concerns about oversight, accountability, and how leadership responds when something that large happens. And this is where people start connecting dots, whether leaders like it or not, because trust is already low. Think about it from an everyday perspective. If you are a lifelong Minnesota resident, you've grown up with a certain state identity, the flag, the symbols, the history. That's part of where you're from. And then suddenly there's a push to replace that with something that feels unfamiliar. And it's not clearly explained in a way that makes sense to you. That's where frustration comes in. It's not just about the design, it's about the feeling like decisions are being made over your head without your input and possibly for political reasons instead of practical ones. From my perspective, this is where it starts to look like the political pandering, not in a loud, obvious way, but in a quieter, more calculated way, where leadership makes decisions that appear to align with certain groups or messaging priorities, and critics are saying that's what's happening here. And they're not buying the idea that this is some neutral redesign. They're looking at the timing, the context, and the broader political environment and saying this feels intentional. And here's where it doesn't even add up for a lot of people. If the goal is unity, if the goal is creating a symbol that represents everyone in the state, then why choose something that so many people immediately see as tied to a specific group or another country? Whether that perception is technically correct or not almost doesn't matter, because perception is what people react to. And right now, that perception is creating division, not unity. At the same time, you got supporters of the redesign saying it's about modernizing the state's image and moving away from older symbols that may not reflect today's Minnesota. And that's the argument. That's their argument. But clearly, not everyone is convinced. So now you got a situation where something as simple as a flag has turned into a much bigger conversation about trust, representation, and political priorities. And when cities start saying they are not on board, that tells you this isn't just noise. There's something real behind it. And people are paying attention and asking questions. And honestly, that's the part that stands out the most. People are looking at what their leaders are doing and deciding whether it lines up with what they believe their state should represent. And right now, a lot of them are saying it doesn't. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And I want you guys to check this out.
There, that's better.
So if you ask me, Somalians have had a soft takeover of Minnesota. I didn't realize this, but look at the new Minnesota flag. I'm sure this was a topic of conversation in the past, but I've never dove deep enough into it to realize that the new Minnesota flag heavily resembles the Somalian flags. I mean, bro, these were concepts of when they were still deciding which flag they were going to land on. Look at this one. Am I crazy? This flag was adopted on May 11th, 2024, and the official explanation was that it was about Minnesota's North Star identity and the state's water. Now, Minnesota has the largest Somali population in the country, and lately Minnesota has been rocked by massive fraud cases. Feeding Our Future alone has been described by prosecutors as one of the largest schemes, with dozens convicted. This ain't a joke, yo. These people are literally trying to take over one of our states, and Tim Walz is just letting it happen. I feel like the dude is a part of the whole thing. When you look at this, bro, how can you deny the resemblance? Don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna demonize an entire community for what criminals do, but there have been too much Somalians coming on social media saying that Minnesota's ours, saying that we're here and we're freeloading and there's nothing you can do about it. Tim Walz needs to be removed, yo. Like, seriously. And this guy almost became our vice freaking president. Like, what?
Tim Walz changed the Minnesota flag to look almost exactly like the Somali flag. I mean, it's a dead ringer for the flag of Somalia. It's got the highest population of Somalis than any other state in America. And you look at Kamala Harris's website, we noticed this the other day. Good luck finding an American flag on there. Good luck finding one policy. One. Nothing. You know what it is? It's LGBTQ pride merch. That's what's on her website. You go to the Trump website, it's covered in American flags. His motto is Make America Great Again. It's his campaign slogan. He's got his former Marine out there. They talk about America and their love of country at every turn. And so I do see this dividing pretty quickly into the pair that loves America and what it stands for, and the pair that doesn't.
Yeah, so you've probably seen this by now. You probably heard people talking about it. And the big claim going on around it is that the new Minnesota state flag looks like a lot like the Somali flag. And that's what a lot of people are saying. And whether you agree with that or not, that's clearly how it's being perceived. Now, for me, I look at it a little simpler than that. Regardless of where you land on a comparison, I think the old flag was just better. It had more character. It felt like it actually, meant something, like it told a story about the state. It wasn't perfect, but it had identity, it had story behind, it had history behind it, and people were used to it. And that matters more than people in government sometimes want to admit. Because here's what this actually looks like in real life. You got regular people who've lived in this city for years, in these cities for years, looking at this change and thinking, why are we fixing something that didn't need to be fixed? That's where the frustration starts. And that's why you're now seeing cities push back in a very real way. This isn't just talk. You got local communities basically saying, we're not going along with this. We are going to keep flying the old flag. Think about that for a second. That's a quiet form of protest, but it says a lot. It's people saying this new version doesn't represent us, so we are sticking with what does. And again, whether the new design was meant to resemble anything Pacific or not, that's almost beside the point now. Because perception has already taken over. People have made up their minds about what it looks like and what it represents. And once that happens, it's very hard to walk it back. From my perspective, this is what happens when decisions like this get pushed without real buy-in from the public. It creates a disconnect, and then people respond the only way they can, by rejecting it in their own communities. So now instead of bringing people together, which is what a state symbol is supposed to do, you got a situation where it's doing the exact opposite. It's dividing people and it's turning something simple into a bigger political statement than it probably needed to be, you know? So now I want you guys to check out in regards of the communities speaking out.
Minnesota's official state flag. But tonight, a city just north of the metro is choosing to fly this flag instead. Thanks for joining us. It appears to be a growing trend. Elk River is the latest city to go against the state in the flag debate. New at 10, Ashley Grams was there tonight as they decided to put a piece of the past front and center. Ashley?
Yeah, and they are far from the first. Elk River follows Champlain's, Umbro, Plainview, and others in reverting back to the old state symbol. Tonight, the town's mayor told me he thinks more cities will follow suit.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
A round of applause on Monday evening in Elk River. The city will now fly the 1983 Minnesota state flag instead of the new one.
A lot of people, I think, took it as a lightning rod issue.
Mayor John Dietz said over 1,000 people weighed in.
I've been on the city council for 32 years, 16 as a council member and 16 as mayor. I don't remember us ever getting that many responses on a particular subject.
Dietz said about 75% of those responses were in favor of flying the old flag.
We thought we should have public input, and I think we did it the right way.
Residents packed City Hall to share their views in early April.
My family is buried in this state, and this flag represents our state.
Flying the official flag shows respect for statewide decisions and avoids creating unnecessary division over something that's already been decided.
But we, the people, did not vote on this. We appreciate our heritage. We would like to respect it.
Back in 2023, the DFL-controlled legislature created a flag commission tasked with redesign of the flag and the state seal. The commission made their pick, and it formally took effect in 2024. At the time, DFL lawmakers said some found it offensive and poorly designed overall. But some Elk River City Council members say they don't feel Greater Minnesota was represented through the redesign process. The mayor believing more rural communities will make the same choice.
I think it's the start of a trend, especially in outstate Minnesota.
And out in Dakota County, a commission.
And there you have it, family. That is the public speaking out in regards to the matter. And that was the point that I was trying to make to you guys, expressing that so you guys can see yourself in real time. And, well, I mean, here's the thing as well. Now that we've seen that, when you watch that clip, you start to see what this actually looks like beyond social media and headlines. This isn't just people arguing online. These are city councils, real meetings, real votes, real residents showing up and saying how they feel. Elk River is just one example, but you heard it in the report. They are not the only one. Other cities are doing the same thing, going back to the old flag, and they're doing it after hearing directly from their communities. Over 1,000 responses in one town, with around 75% saying they prefer the old flag. Think about that. When do you ever see that level of engagement over something like a flag? That tells you this hit a nerve. And this is where it doesn't add up for a lot of people. If this was just a simple redesign that everyone was on board with, you wouldn't see this kind of pushback at the local level. You wouldn't see packed city halls. You wouldn't see votes to reject it. And you definitely wouldn't see multiple cities deciding on their own to stick with the old symbol. Right? And here's what this actually looks like in real life. You got residents saying this flag represents our history, our families, our connection to the state. And they feel like that was changed without them really having a say. One person in the clip even said it straight up. We, the people, did not vote on this. You heard them in this news clip. And that right there is the core issue. It's not just about design. It's about process. People want to feel like they were included in the decision, especially when it comes to something that represents the entire state. And when they don't feel included, they push back. And that's what you're seeing here. Now, from my perspective, this is where the bigger conversation starts to come in. In a constitutional republic, the idea is that government is supposed to reflect the will of the people, not move ahead of it. The founders were very clear about limiting top-down decisions that ignore public input. And while this is a state-level issue, the principle still applies. When people feel like decisions are being made without them, trust starts to break down. And once that trust is gone, even small issues turn into big ones. To be fair, there are people on the other side of this who say the state went through a formal process. There were committees, submissions, and reviews, and the goal was to create a flag that better reflects modern Minnesota. And that's their argument. Don't take my word for it, family. I want you guys to hear for yourself.
Democrat Representative Pramila Jayapal is now under fire after she claimed that Somalis, Indians, Latinos, and Africans built America.
The majority of Americans across the country, regardless of political party, know that immigrants from all over the world, Somalia, India, wherever they're from, Latin America, Africa, that immigrants have built this country and make this country what it is today.
So now you guys heard the clip of a Democratic representative basically saying the goal was to create a flag that better reflects modern Minnesota and their definition of how they're looking at it. And that's their argument. But here's where the disconnect happens. A formal process doesn't always feel like a public process. Regular people don't always feel like they were part of it, even if technically they could have been, and perception matters. And then you got the cultural side of this conversation, because Minnesota has changed a lot over the years, especially in cities like Minneapolis. And with that comes new communities, new influences, and new voices. And the question people are asking is, how do you balance that with the history that's already there? How do you bring in new perspectives without making long-time residents feel like their identity is being replaced or ignored? What about the simple fact that the history is what attracted new individuals in the first place, and now what? You just get rid of it you get rid of it in the name of the flag? Because that's the tension you're seeing play out here. Think about it like this. If you change a symbol that's been around for decades, and you're not just changing an image, you're changing what people recognize as their home. And if that change isn't clearly explained or it feels rushed, people are going to question it. So now you got a situation where local governments are stepping in and saying they are going to reflect what their residents want, even if it goes against the state's decision. And that lines up with the idea that decisions should be made as close to the people as possible. See, I have learned that a lot of businesses fail because the simple fact is a boss hire people, right? Or let's say you run a company and you hire people and you're like, I keep hiring people, I keep offering jobs and people don't want them. They're not working hard enough. What the reality is, the simple fact is, even though you hire employees, you should always realize that you work for the employees, because the employees was what built your company to scale bigger than what it is. You work for your employees, but you think you're bigger than your employees. And that's the same thing that resonates here. Why is the state thinking that they're bigger than the people that actually created the state, let alone pay taxes for the state to be able to do what it does based on its possibilities to be able to scale and have the capabilities that it have to attract new individuals with the history of the old flag? See? But at the same time, it creates a split, because where the state has one symbol, certain cities are choosing another. And for something that's supposed to unify people, is doing the opposite. At the end of the day, this isn't just about a flag anymore. It's about trust, representation, and whether people feel like their voice actually matters. And I'm not here to tell you what to think. And right now, based on what you're seeing, though, in these meetings and votes, a lot of people feel like it doesn't. And they're finding their own way to make it heard. And now that you heard all the clips, it gives you a better sense of where some of this thinking is coming from. And in my view, that context matters. You got certain politicians emphasizing the role of immigration in building the country. And to be fair, immigration has absolutely been part of America's story from the beginning. People from all over the world have come here and contributed in different ways. That's just reality. But this is where it starts to feel like the message gets stretched too far for a lot of people. Because when you present it in a way that sounds like the core identity of the country is being redefined or replaced, that's where people start to push back. Think about it in simple terms. Most Americans understand the foundation of the country, the Constitution, the system of government, the rights we have, all of that coming from the founding generation. That's the baseline. That's the starting point. And then over time, people have come in, contributed, worked, built lives, and added to that system. Both things can be true at the same time. But when it feels like one part is being downplayed to elevate another, that's when it creates tension. Now bring that back to Minnesota and the flag situation. And from my perspective, what this looks like to a lot of residents is leadership trying to reflect the newer version of the state's identity while not fully respecting the history that was already there. And again, that doesn't mean new communities shouldn't be recognized. It just means people want balance. They want to feel like their history still matters too. Because what is there to be ignorant and basically dissolve and discredit, let alone belittle and erase the history, to see how far you've came, and also not to repeat the same mistakes to continue to evolve moving forward? See, a lot of individuals, you're talking about servicemen and servicewomen, and thank you for my service My heart goes out to all my servicemen and servicewomen who fight and sacrifice for this country, and the courage, right? The cojones to go out there and fight just for the privileges to be able to be an aid to the world as America is today. Right? Blood, sweat, and tears, black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. For the simple fact that there's always a fight for unity to bring all cultures together. But for the main core thing of the beauty of America is to have opportunity. So why is opportunity being redefined as a race in history, even within the states? It makes people look at it and think, so history doesn't matter no more to how far we came, to truly embrace the beauty of where we came from, to be grateful. Because gratitude and understanding that it's a humbling thing, because it also makes you susceptible to vulnerability, to have the open, honest conversation. Because if you could be vulnerable but also grateful at the same time, you could be humbled enough to be open-minded to new ideas, to move forward as we all move in unity and love as a country, to continue to move forward and evolve and have more opportunities, right? Which is why we have the process and processes to be able to have individuals come over here the right way and be part and bring their culture, to have different cultures to be embraced. But the simple fact of, where is the fine line people are saying in, okay, we can embrace each other cultures, but what about the culture subsiding what the foundation of this country core identity was, in which it made it all safe for all of us to come together and be able to brace with so many different opportunities and be able to intertwine and commingle and coexist within each other. But we all understood that this was the land of the free, with responsibility, opportunity, and rights that also came with responsibility as a productive citizen. And as we worked hard as productive individuals in communities and came close together as communities, it was better for the overall greater, for all individuals, promoting productivity, promoting not only the opportunity, but also for the next generation, that you can be something if you just do something positive, productive, and you work hard out of life for what you get, right? And not to go on a tangent, because this is bigger than just Minnesota and the flag, but these are what the individuals are saying from the overall sentiment, me just seeing comments and stuff across the media. And we just having a discussion about it. I'm not telling you what to think, because here's what this actually looks like in real life. If you're someone whose family has been in Minnesota for generations and you see a major state symbol change in a way that feels disconnected from that history, you're going to question it, not out of anger, but out of confusion. You're going to ask out of confusion, who is this really for? And why wasn't there more input from the people? And at the same time, supporters of these kinds of changes would argue that the state is evolving, democratics are shifting, and symbols should reflect what the state looks like today, not just what it looked like decades ago. And that's a fair point to bring into the conversation. States do change over time. You either evolve with the times or get left behind. But here's where it doesn't add up for a lot of people. Change works best when people feel like they're a part of it, not when it feels like it's being handed down to them. Excuse the train family. But because once it feels imposed, even in a small change can turn into a bigger issue about trust and representation. So when you connect the dots, you got messaging at the national level about identity and contribution, right? And then you got local decisions that seem to reflect that same mindset. And people are putting those pieces together, whether leaders intend them to or not. And that's why something like a flag redesign ends up carrying more weight than it normally would. It becomes symbolic of a bigger question, which is simple. Who gets to define what a place represents? The people who've been there for generations, the people who are arriving now, or ideally some balance of both? And right now, based on the reaction you're seeing in these Minnesota communities, a lot of people feel like their balance is off. And they're pushing back in the only way they really can, by rejecting the change and holding on to what they feel represents them better. But let me know what you guys think. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Make sure you like the video, share the video. And as always, let the love supersede the hate. Peace.